All right, we are live. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome in. Welcome in. Just going to go ahead and do my normal pre-show stuff, and then we'll get right into it. Wait for everybody to funnel on in here. I hope everybody is having a fantastic day today on this Monday. We have a few map updates, and then just a situation to talk about in Ukraine that's unfolding. But other than that, if you guys have questions, go ahead and get some questions in. This is probably going to be a little bit of a shorter episode. There's just not quite as much going on, but we do have some very important updates. So we're going to go ahead and get into that right here and now. Let me just retweet this. Boom. Done. All right. All right. Let's see. What do we got going on in the chat here? Greetings from Portugal. Greetings from Los Angeles. Greetings from Macedonia. From Roswell, New Mexico. What the heck? I've been to Roswell, New Mexico. That town is dinky, but it's full of alien crap, so it's kind of fun. What's up, guys? What's up? Slovakia. What's up, man? Greece. That's awesome. You guys are awesome. Brussels. All right. Let's go ahead and get into it. We got enough people in here now. Let's go ahead and jump right on into this. Go over to the map. Boom. We got some updates to cover today. So up here in the Kursk region, there is a river right here, which now has had 3 bridges blown across it by the Ukrainians. This river right here is sort of a cutoff for the lower half of this Kursk region, and it's almost what the Ukrainians are probably planning to control here. Remember, I talked about the fact that the bridge across this river into this area of Russia, right up against the Ukrainian border, had already been cut, and this is in the gray zone because the Russians had left this little salient, this little bridgehead, because it just doesn't make sense to sit over there and be cut off from supplies. The Ukrainians have now struck bridges across this river right here in 3 different locations, and are likely going to try to push into this region and capture just this southern little stretch right here. But again, nothing major, and it has a very strong line of defense for the Russians, which is the river. So the Ukrainians may slightly expand their zone of control here. It's not unrealistic to think this is going to happen. We do have a small advance. And guys, I just want to remind you that my, hold on, let me do it like this. I just want to remind you guys that my Kursk map, as just like the same as my Kharkov map over here when the Russians pushed into Kharkov, I updated this very slow and very tentatively because I knew what it was. And I knew that the Russians were not going to get very far, and any over dramatic pushes that we may see are probably not accurate. Same goes with this. I mapped this very, very slowly when I'm confident that the Ukrainians are actually in an area. A lot of mapping has this at close to like 1,000 square kilometers of controlled and gray zone ish. And they do this thing where they put like this huge gray zone like all the way around this thing, and then they claim that somehow the Ukrainians have some sort of control in this. I don't see that as realistic. So I don't really do gray zone, especially where I have no idea where the gray zone is. I'm uncomfortable doing gray zone sometimes over here in the east where the lines are a lot more stable even. But up here, I have no appetite to put gray zone in because it's all just guesswork and has no real impact on reality, I guess I would say. So this is what we know that the Ukrainians most likely control a majority of right here. This will be added into the blue after this. The yellow is just to show you guys the new progress for the Ukrainians. But the most important thing is that this section could very easily fall. It's just not very beneficial for the Russians to hold anything on this side of the line if the supply situation becomes untenable in here. sacrificing, again, another just stretch of small villages, nothing major, no major objectives, and forcing the Ukrainians to hold a salient that they weren't holding before is going to ultimately benefit the Russians in the east. So there's a ongoing debate right now. Are the Ukrainians going to double down on the Kursk incursion? I definitely think that they are. I think that there's no choice but for them to do this. They've already committed, which has already sacrificed the east. New York is gone. Toretsk is going to be gone soon. The Russians are going to be in Pokrovsk. Chasiv Yar is going to see progress here very soon. So there's really no option for the Ukrainians outside continuing this successful operation that is untenable in terms of the manpower commitment. We already know this, but even the brigade commanders from like the 82nd and the 80th, the day before they went into the Kursk region, right, they were removed because they weren't told the plan. And then when they were told the plan at the last minute, the brigade commander said, I think of the 80th, said that his brigade did not have the human resources required for this task, basically. And he was removed and replaced with the yes men that went in. And now the 80th and the 82nd have been completely depleted. And if they commit more reserves here, this is just going to be extremely detrimental to the east. So I hear a lot of people, I mean, for the pro-Ukrainian information space, the big names in the pro-Ukrainian information space, like Ukraine Battle Maps and some other people like that, they're not even talking about the east. I've been bringing this up quite frequently that half of this information space, the pro-Russian side hardly ever talks about Kursk, which is kind of a problem because it's you don't usually talk about what you don't like, and then the pro-Ukrainian side doesn't talk about the east because they're getting demolished over there. So this is their focus right now. And I've been hard pressing people to tell me what the actual objective here is, because we already have confirmation that Russian reserves are not being pulled from the east to respond to this. This is being dealt with other reserves that are available. So it's not slowing down the progress over here. Fighter aircraft are not being diverted to this location. They already have plenty in the region. This incursion is not pulling resources. The only other thing you can suggest is that the Ukrainians are trying to get something to negotiate leverage in negotiations, but the very action of crossing this border into Kursk has made negotiations basically impossible. So, the Kursk operation so far has been nothing but a big expenditure of resources for the Ukrainians, and a critical deficiency in the east has led to some major collapses and some major progress by the Russians. So again, this has yet to achieve anything of any significance. No matter what anybody's trying to tell you, the Russian casualties in this area are not high. The only thing that happened was on the first couple of days, a bunch of the conscripts got captured, which has been the argument that Ukraine is somehow replacing its exchange fund for prisoners, but the Ukrainians are losing a lot of prisoners too. I saw another 10 or 20 today, probably, in different little groups. So the Ukrainians are still being captured. The Ukrainians are being killed in much higher numbers. Equipment losses for the Ukrainians are much higher. And we forget that the Sumy region has just been getting bombarded daily with glide bombs and missile strikes. A lot of high-level equipment is being lost. We saw another S-300 system lost over here in the Kharkiv region. So you got to remember that there are heavy, heavy losses occurring in the back line too that aren't being reported on at all, are not being talked about, and are not being shown by the Russians because they're not in this section of the front, right? You don't get to see the bodies from the glide bomb blasts and stuff like that, but they're there. They exist. And these are other what would you'd call them, like unseen losses, like losses that you can't really exactly account for, but exist in some manner. Okay, so that's the Kursk region. We could see a major, a secondary major incursion into this lower section here. It would greatly expand this buffer zone, but again, really, what is it doing, right? If the east falls here, this does not matter. The Ukrainians will not be able to maintain this, or they'll start losing places like Pulverhad, Dnipro, all these other places down here. So Kursk it has so far not yielded anything. I'm waiting though. I'm not saying it's over yet, but I can't find an objective here that's going to benefit Ukraine in the long term. So, okay. Moving over to some Russian advances. So this is pretty big. The Russians have expanded out of Pishane. There is a fortification here that is now surrounded on three sides. So when the Russians eventually take this, that'll free up some space over here to progress out for the Russians. The Russians are on the high ground and they are expanding their little spearhead here from Pishani towards Kupiansk. And again, this is a big deal because as soon as this is cut, this pocket becomes very, very hard for the Ukrainians to hold. And this pocket becomes much harder for the Ukrainians to hold. So we could see a lot of progress up in this Kupiansk, Kharkov region as soon as Pishani, the Russians develop out of Pishani towards Kolsenivka. All right. All right. The Russians have advanced into Makiivka from the north here and have crossed the Zhibyets River at this location. This is a big deal because this Zhibyets River is sort of a defensive line for the Ukrainians. So crossing it again, they crossed it up here. They've crossed it. They have not crossed it down here. Actually, I need to move this. But they have crossed it up here. So again, not a huge advance, but an important advance that can weaken the defense in a given region. All right, moving down to the Vimika area on the Siversk front. The Russians have again advanced along this railroad and captured a railroad station right here. It's not really there anymore, but it was a railroad station at one time. This is, again, along the high ground, following the railroad, just like around Orchitny down here, following the high ground along the railroad. Railroads tend to run along the high ground. And this advance is not critical, but again, it's just tightening this circle around Siversk. The Russians are now 9-10 kilometers away from Siversk, right? So they're getting very, very close to being within, I mean, they are in ATGM range, or getting close to ATGM range and stuff. So the high ground is going to become very important here soon. And the Battle of Siversk may begin very quickly, especially because we don't know where Ukraine's going to send reserves, where Ukraine's going to choose to retreat. This pocket could become a very big issue for the Ukrainians if, Pokrovsk starts developing very, 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 very well for the Russians, and then the Ukrainians have to come down here and start responding. This entire area will be weakened by that. So it really just depends on where the Russians are going to go ahead and get the jump, how they're going to progress through either York, Toretsk, or Pokrovsk, or maybe down here in Ugledar area. We're just going to have to see. Another small piece of progress in an area we haven't seen much progress in a very long time. The Russians have advanced, I guess you would say, in the Slavyansk-Kramatorsk direction. That's the next biggest city in any given direction from this advance. But it's along this E40 highway, which is the major highway from Slavyansk to Bakhmut. Traveling along these highways is very important because there's just limited road access. And this is part of why Pokrovsk is such a big deal. This E50 comes from Pulverhad. This is the safest and most direct supply route for the southern portion of the country. If you wanted to come down this way, you technically can, but there's just a lot less down here. So moving logistics through this area, it's a lot more exposed. Russian UAVs hover over this area constantly. It's hard to actually run logistics this way. It's much easier to run logistics through big cities like Pokrovsk, which used to be a rear staging area, but now it's a near rear staging area. It is like the closest to the front line now, along with Minhorod. So cutting highways in Ukraine is devastating for either side's logistics. The E50 being cut, especially right here, is a big deal. That's why we are seeing this collapse in this region by the Ukrainians. Same goes for all of the rest of the country. And remember, if Pokrovsk is intercepted, the only way that the Ukrainians can bring down supplies is through through the highway that runs through Kharkov and then down through Izium down into Slavyansk. Because see, there's just nothing in this area. There's not a lot of roads in this area. So you either have to come down here through Pokrovsk or come up here through the north through Izium and down, right? So if this gets eliminated, this is a very big deal. This is why I'm talking about Pokrovsk so much and why it's so important. But the same goes for up here. Following this E40 highway is going to disrupt Ukrainian logistics to the area, as well as improving Russian logistics to this entire open space right here, which is a vital high ground, which will need to be taken to capture Kramatorsk and Slavyansk. So small advance here, nothing major, just a field, but not insignificant. All right, moving down to the New York Toretsk salient. All of New York has come under Russian control. New York is now a Russian city. It goes by another name. I can't remember the name at the time. I'm going to keep calling it New York because that's way easier. And yeah, the Russians have also advanced into Nelpivka right here from two different directions. Nelpivka will likely fall in the coming days as the front line sort of levels out right up here and looking towards the Toretsk direction. Oh, this is also messed up. I don't know why this didn't get fixed. I already did this, but I guess we're going to do it again because this salient looks different now. This salient looks like this because the Russians captured all of that. Oops. This is what I do all day, guys. These little dots are so annoying. Don't worry. We're almost done. Last one. Boom. Okay. So, oh, nope, missed one. This is what the front line here looks like. Remember, these two industrial hills have been captured. Oh, look, this one didn't save either. Sometimes I update this map, and then if I exit out at the wrong time, it doesn't save. So apologies for doing this as we speak, but you guys get to see how the magic is made. How the magic is made, how the sausage is made. It's something like that. I'll come back and fix it perfectly earlier or later. But both of these industrial hills have been captured, and the Russians are now looking at Toretsk as the next battle. And this battle, I think this battle right here, the battle for Toretsk, is going to be a instant battle. It's going to be very, very quick. The way the Ukrainians in this region are talking, they're very upset because they know it's going to fall extremely quickly. There's not really a good situation here for the Ukrainians anymore. Toretsk is naturally just kind of in this little low ground. I mean, this part of Toretsk isn't, but all of this outside is. So there's one little spot of high ground, and some of these, industrial hills give some height. But I'm actually going to take us over to the topographical map just so we can look at this upcoming battle of Toretsk. And when I say quick, I mean, it's not going to be a months, a multi-month grind battle. It's going to be much, much quicker than that. Okay, so here you can see the 1-2 high grounds, right? Toretsk is in the low ground here pretty much. Like I said, there's one little spot of high ground, which the Russians will end up moving into. But once that's captured, right, Toretsk is on the low ground. So the Russians are going to have this high ground advantage. They're going to be looking down into the city. They're going to be able to see logistics coming in. And if they progress through Klishchivka up here to the canal, they're going to control all of the high ground in the entire region. They literally control everything from up here in Chasiv Yar, like half of Chasiv Yar, all the way down, all the way through this high ground. You can see these two high points right here that they have captured. Down here, all the way along the high ground, down Orchitny, down all the way to Novohodivka right here. So the Russians are in full control in terms of the topography now. You can see that the Russians almost completely control every single spurt of high ground in the Donetsk region that they can use to their advantage. There are still a couple that need to be captured, but for the New York Toretsk salient, the Russians have themselves set up. I mean, this is all Russian territory right here. They're just looking down on Toretsk now. Like I said, the momentum's here. The Ukrainians don't have any momentum. They're actually quite defeated in Toretsk. I think this battle is going to be I think this battle is going to be the really quick one of the war, where everybody, all of the pro-Ukrainians are going to go, oh, maybe Kursk wasn't such a great idea, because maybe we're losing really, really major cities and fortifications for nothing. Like that's what's, I think that's what's going to happen with Toretsk. It could also be Pokrovsk. I'm not sure. I just think the Battle of Pokrovsk is just a little bit further away because of actually what we're going to talk about right now. So I'm going to move over back to the map, and we're going to talk about what I think is going to happen down here in the Pokrovsk front. So looking down here, we have a couple of advances. First off, out of Yasno-Brodivka, the Russians have advanced out and captured just the remaining part of this bridgehead. Not a major advance, what we've expected for a long time. They did clear all of the houses in the northern section of Kharkiv. This is actually part of Kharkiv, so the Russians have captured the northern section of the city, but kind of unimportant, isolated, and not standing likely at this point. So not a big deal here. There are also reports, and I'm actually going to expand this because I just got a new report came in. So we are going to expand this out. It looks as though the Ukrainians have retreated from the villages of Pishe down here. I think that's how you say it. And the village of Kamasivka, as well as these two fortifications right here. So another big retreat for the Ukrainians, another big advance for the Russians. And guys, what is going to happen here, in my personal opinion, is what we're going to see this push south. So instead of going straight to Pokrovsk, I mean, there's still going to be advances in the Pokrovsk direction, I'm sure. The Russians are still going to be pushing there. If the opportunity opens up for itself, they're going to take it. That's how the Russians always are. They're always looking for the weak spot, the opportunity. If they see it, then they push there. As soon as it's closed, they push somewhere else and wait for the opportunity to open back up again. So we could definitely see the Russians in Pokrovsk. I think they're probably going to be in this village in September sometime. That's when I think they're going to reach it. That's just a guess. I don't know. I think late September, the Russians will probably get into Pokrovsk. Now, I think that there's going to be a ton of progress south here. I think that the Russians, so just so you guys know, the Russians have advanced into Makahivka and have captured this industrial mound here. Again, I would like to take you guys over to the topographical map just to show you. Oh, canceled out of it. Hold on just a second. Here we go. Topographical map. Chitny, Hardivka. All right. So here is that high ground right here that was just captured by the. Wait. This high ground right here was just captured by the Russians. So you can see how the Russians have again pushed down, captured all of the high ground right here along the rail line, have captured all of this, have come down, and now really they only have to capture Novohordivka to gain the rest of the high ground towards Pokrovsk, as well as push into Selidove right here, which is another big hub, and capture this other industrial mound. As soon as this industrial mound is captured and this industrial mound is captured right here, the Russians basically have all of the high ground in the entire region, and this entire salient right here moves into the low ground. Look how bad this defensive position is for the Ukrainians. They are currently sitting in this pocket with the Russians on the high ground all the way around them down to here. or down to here. That's crazy, right? I mean, that's such a massive flanking maneuver that this entire area is now completely exposed. I'm going to take us back to the map. Actually, let me do this. Let me go here and get this picture open, and I'll go edit, and then we'll go work up. Okay, and then we'll go present, share screen. I got you guys. I think this is the one. Okay, yeah, here we go. So I'm going to do some editing here and just arrows and stuff like that so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about. Let me make sure that this looks okay on the stream because I'm on a different page right now. Sorry, guys. Okay, no, that looks good. I just couldn't tell if it was big enough. All right, let's go ahead and do this. Okay, so here we go. The Russians are currently on this hill right here. This hill is of vital importance. This hill is one of the only other high grounds in the area, along with this one right here, which the Russians are now looking at directly from this high ground. Probably very quickly this will fall. And then this one down here in Uransk. So these two hills are the most vital. The Russians are going to look to push down and capture these. Let's go with arrows. The Russians are looking to push down and capture these, push out and capture these. Once these are secured, you can see how this pocket is forming, right? You're looking at what is going to be a massive Ukrainian retreat out of this entire section. Novelske, Kharkivka, all of these little towns right here. We've already seen up here, like my map isn't updated. I just did this part, but you can see that this area is already seeing Ukrainian retreats. The Ukrainians will have to retreat out of here, out of here, out of here, right? As the Russians come down, because this is just all on the low ground. The Ukrainians don't have good logistics into this area either. As soon as this hill is taken, you can see how the lines of logistics into Kharkiv and this area are completely cut. You're looking at a lot of Ukrainian AFU that are going to be trapped here. So realistically, what I think is going to happen is we are going to see basically something. Let me open up a different one now. The one that I used for my thumbnail, in fact, and I'm going to show you guys that. Although you've already looked at it. Wait. There we go. Okay. So let's go here. And then we can see what, so this is what I was talking about, right? Pushing into Seladove, the hill there, pushing down, capturing the hill in Murmansk, getting behind. And then once you're here, these moves are going to happen very fast. These ones might be slow, but these ones will be quick. And with this collapsing, who knows what sort of route situation is going to happen here with the Ukrainians trying to get down through these villages and get out over here. We could see a massive collapse in this entire region, guys. And I think the Russian goal is south right now. I don't think the Russian goal is west. I think that this is so vulnerable to be captured. And once all of this is captured, the Ukrainians have no defense lines here. So pushing south will just completely unravel the entire Ukrainian defense in the south of the country. Okay. Back over to the map real fast. So those are the primary updates for today. That's the major gist of what's going on. I think the Russians are just going to try to close out the rest of this defense line here. Again, they'll still try to progress in other directions. There's no reason that they should stop, but this is going to be an area of contention right here for the immediate future. You're going to see a lot of Ukrainian retreats. You're going to see a lot of this turn green in the near future here. Okay, the final update we have is in the Konstantinivka area. We have reports that the Russians have reached the 0532 highway in the middle of Konstantinivka, which basically makes this whole area up here, meaningless to hold for the Ukrainians. So we're probably going to see this area south of Pobeda turn Russian. And then you can see how the whole 0532 highway is about to be met by the Russian front line. So this practically is the front line now. And did it delete every single update I did? I'm sorry, guys. Something happened to my map and it deleted every single update. So let me fix this because the Russians came up here and they were here and here and there and there. Okay. Don't know why it deleted it again. Maybe it's in a different folder I can see. Nope, my presentation's up. Nope, it's all there. Okay, so I just didn't save. This was the advance into Vadian. I had it in red, but I'll just leave it in green so I remember to do it. But again, the Russians are crossing the 0532 along this entire highway here and putting a lot of pressure on the #1 coal mine and Ugledar. And again, once Ugledar falls, again, this is going to be one of these linchpins that once this area falls, the entire south is going to be much more exposed. So this coming down in conjunction with this working out in the south, we could see just a major, major collapse of the south here. And this is what I've been talking about for months, guys. This is what I thought was coming and sort of the direction I had predicted the Russian offensive for the summer heading in. We are now getting into the late summer, into the fall, and I think we're about to see the big move. The big collapse is coming for the Ukrainians. This Kursk adventure really put them in a bad position in terms of their overall reserve pool and everything like that. So I think that we will very soon see Russian progress that will contend with the progress that the Ukrainians are making in Kursk right now. Well, more impactful than the Ukrainians are making in Kursk, but in terms of territory size. All right, go ahead and get some questions in, guys. I am going to read one or two little articles right here, and then I will answer some questions. Okay. Ukraine orders families to leave key city of Pokrovsk and Mihrad amid Russian advances. An order to evacuate comes as Russian advances in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region, saying it captured the town of Zelensky. That's a weird one to focus on, but Ukrainian authorities have issued an urgent order for families with children to evacuate the eastern city of Pokrovsk, where the Russian army is bearing down fast despite lightning Ukrainian incursion into Russia's Kursk region. Okay, so media is admitting that mainstream media is admitting that even though the Kursk incursion is going on, the Russians are still bearing down in the east. So the Kursk incursion has not done what it needed to do to get the job done, right? That's the bottom line, is it's not accomplishing what it needed to accomplish. Local authorities said Russian forces are advancing so quickly that families must leave the city and other nearby towns and villages starting Tuesday. Around 53,000 people still live in Pokrovsk. I doubt it. I doubt 53,000 people live in Pokrovsk. Officials say, while some have already fled, yeah, I would imagine some have already fled homes as the Russian army advances. Ridiculous. All right. So, yeah, basically, the Ukrainians are giving up on the east. That's what's going on. I think that they realize that they're just not going to be able to hold it. The battle does not suit them anymore, and they do not have a chance of winning by fighting an asymmetrical defensive battle in the east. The only chance they have to win is either by escalating this into a war with NATO or by changing the situation somehow in the Kursk region. They didn't end up doing that. I think to do that, they would have needed to quickly capture the NPP or, cut off the highway to the north. They haven't accomplished that. It's going on 15 days now or 16 days. So there's just not a lot left in the tank. Even if they throw in and introduce secondary reserves, the lines have stopped, right? The momentum has stopped. The Russians have set up ambushes. The Ukrainians, if they're going to advance, it's going to be so costly for them that it'll be worth it for the Russians. I've even heard pro-Ukrainian commentators in some spaces and stuff talking about this. They say that in the east, this is their claim, right? in the east, the Ukrainians were enjoying a 10-to-1 kill ratio on the Russians. Whatever, it's cope. But then you hear them talking about the Ukraine incursion into Kursk, talking about a potential 2-to-1 favor for the Russians in terms of casualties, which is a big omission by Ukrainian sources that were just claiming 10-to-1 Russian casualties, which I don't see how you're doing that when the Russians are dropping twice the artillery shells and twice the bombs on you, and twice the drones and twice the missiles, and it's 4 times the missiles probably. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but whatever. The casualties in the Kursk region are high, to say the least. All right. One more article here. Ukraine says its incursion will bring peace. Putin's plans may differ. So this is just an article, again, kind of dismissing the Kursk incursion as not being strategically sound in any sense, right? It doesn't make any sense. The goals that they've laid out, getting leverage for negotiations, that doesn't make sense because you just ruin negotiations by doing this. I don't know if they're trying to force negotiations by doing this, but that's not going to happen. The Russians are in a winning position. Why would they go to the negotiating table in a position of weakness like this? Just wait it out. Just literally wait it out another year. What do you have to lose? Nothing. You're not going to lose more Kursk. The Ukrainians can't hold it forever, so just sit and wait. But let's get into this. In July, as he secretly readied an invasion of Russia, President Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine sent a very different signal in public. He wanted talks to end the war. Speaking to the BBC, Mr. Zelensky said that he had a plan to end the hot stage of the war this year. He dispatched his foreign ministers on a surprise trip to China, a mission to improve Ukraine's relationship with Russia, with Russia's most important partner. And he pushed for a series of international meetings, including one planned for Qatar in August, in which he hoped to rally backing for Ukraine's position to pave the way for a broader settlement. So this is true. The foreign minister of Ukraine did go to China and had what they called a productive conversation on the path to peace in Ukraine. Yes, it was probably not agreed upon by the Russians, but at least the Ukrainians seem to start to be making some concessions in terms of negotiations and in terms of a ceasefire or peace agreement, which is something that I always talked about. The Russians offered this agreement with the annexation of the 4 oblasts completely. Like I said, that was the best deal that the Ukrainians were going to get. That was the last best deal. And now we see it was. And the Russians are going to get whatever they want now. So that deal's off the table. But they went to China. They lied to China. They lied right to China's face. They told them all of these things that they were going to do. And then they got back, and a month later, they invaded Russia, which was it's a complete change of direction from what they were talking about in China. Chinese are very upset with the Ukrainians right now. They did not like that because the Chinese are, first off, trying to be the world mediators, right? They're trying to take over the United States position in that. That's what a hegemony does. They police the world. So the Chinese are looking to be the peace stealers always. The United States does not want China to be the peace stealers, which also could be part of the reason why we're seeing this incursion. If the Chinese were about to accomplish something with the Russians and the Ukrainians, the West would not allow that. So another thing that I'm just spitballing here is that potentially this incursion was supported by some groups in the United States simply because they did not want China to win, right? And they did not want a negotiated settlement with Russia. We got a question. In December, is the war over then? Probably not, friend. Probably not. As much as we all wish that the war would end, no. I think that the war will go on for probably a good another year until we see it wrap up. But yeah, so again, just a lie. They lied to China. Which is a bad idea. Just be pragmatic with China, and China will be pragmatic with you. They did the exact opposite. They really pissed off China. Here we go. His summer overtures departed from the 2 years of Mr. Zelensky. Wait, His summer overtures departed from the 2 years of Mr. Zelensky refusing to offer any hint of concessions in the face of a Russian invasion that many Ukrainians believe aims to wipe their country off the map. The last peace deal that Putin just offered Ukraine was the 4 oblasts, NATO neutrality, and sanctions relief. If those 3 things happened, right, and protection of Russian peoples and stuff like that, obviously, but if those 3 major things happened, Ukraine would not get wiped off the map. So this is just another lie. This is how the media does it, man. They just slip these things in, and it just gets into your subconscious, and then you read it and you read it and you read it, and it's all anybody thinks about. And they made it all the more stunning when on August 6th, the Ukrainian forces rolled into Russia's Kursk region. Yeah, it was stunning because that's a lie. They lied again. And you know who lies a lot and then invades countries? Somebody was doing that in the 1940s. Somebody that a lot of people don't like was doing that in the 1940s. The U.S. does it a lot too. Let's see. Delivering one of the most embarrassing moments of President Putin's 30 months war and confounding predictions that the 2 countries might be headed towards a ceasefire. So again, delivering one of the most embarrassing moments. Embarrassing is an emotion. Again, this is such a ridiculous idea to me. You're in a war. You have an enemy that is openly lying to you about wanting peace negotiations. They secretly stage. They don't tell any of their high command what's going on because they have so many goddamn leaks. They can't keep anything from the Russians secret. And then once the plan goes into action, it's a surprise. Somehow it's embarrassing to Putin, which again, this whole embarrassment thing is it's like a projection. It's like you're forcing this negativity onto this just because you have nothing else to cope with. Oh, it's embarrassing. How is it if he wins the war? How is this embarrassing? If this is the strategic blunder that loses Ukraine the war indefinitely, like there's no turning back from this point, how is that an embarrassment to Putin? It's not. It's just not. It's just not embarrassing. Like the whole embarrassment thing, you have to be embarrassed. And an embarrassment would mean that it just means that you made a mistake. And I guess you could say that there was some Russian intelligence failures, sure, but the Ukrainians did an excellent job of staging. It's not embarrassing when you're going up against an adversary supported by NATO and the United States, so that literally the hegemony in the world, with all of the satellite equipment, all of the intel that they can possibly need, all of the weapons that the US can provide, and the West can provide. How is it embarrassing that your enemy makes an incursion, you stop the incursion, they have taken untenable losses for their current manpower pool and equipment pool, and you're still capturing the East, which is the main focal point of the entire war? I don't see the embarrassment. To me, it's embarrassing that Ukraine lied to China, ruined their relationship with China, ruined any chance of negotiations with Russia, and probably pissed off a lot of people in the West and in Europe who aren't on the neocon crazy ideological trip where they need to go to war with everybody. So thank you for the super sticker, man. Appreciate it. Okay, that's all I have today. So we can go ahead and get into some questions if you guys want. Go ahead and ask. Go ahead and ask. I'll scroll up and see if I missed anything. Scott is so handsome. I'll take that one. Question. How much territory does Ukraine have to capture in Kursk for Russia to consider as losing the war? They would. Okay, so I'll show you here. This is what I would have said if Ukraine would have done this at the beginning, it would have been successful. So if Ukraine would have if Ukraine would have seen some massive penetration and gotten up in here into Kornevo like this and got up here, that would have been much, much bigger. They're not in Kornevo right now. If they would have made it up to the E38, it would have been a much worse situation for the Russians. But that's still like 20 kilometers to go. If they would have made it to Lvov and the nuclear power plant, that would have been basically a complete victory. If they would have made it to Kursk, that would be extremely detrimental to Putin's future as the leader of the country if nothing was happening in return. That would have been horrible, especially with the force commitment that the Ukrainians had. They would never have been able to make it to Kursk just because of the casualties they would have sustained along the way would have been insurmountable. But that is what would if the border looked something more like this right now. Something like this. This would have been this would be really bad. This would be like a whole like Kharkov situation. Like that would be like the losing little bit right there. If that something like that happened. That's what would need to occur for the Russians to be considered probably losing. I mean, the way the battle's going right now, the Russians aren't losing. So if something changes and the casualties switch and the Russians start just eating it for some reason in this region, which they're not right now, that could change the situation. But again, as long as the Russians don't have to rotate out of the east to defend this, then this is pointless. This does nothing. This area right here is all just forest. Forest, forest, forest. Forested area, fields, and forest. That's all it is. So yeah. All right. Why do you get so many NAFO crybabies on here that can't cope with Ukraine losing? They can't cope with anything. They have no coping skills. These people literally just don't have coping abilities, and that's okay. They will never admit that they're wrong. At the end of this, if Ukraine loses every single inch of territory and Russia captures all of it, they'll still say something like, well, the Russians took X amount of casualties and they'll never be able to do it again, so we won. That's what's going to happen. They don't care about Ukraine. They don't care about Ukrainians. It's an ideological position and a groupthink ideology, right? They just want to sit and not have to think for themselves and enjoy comfortable, easy narratives. That's what they want, and that's what they get. So they can keep living in that, and I'm just going to sit back and just watch myself be right over and over and over and over again, and watch them be wrong, and know that I'm just, my opinion is correct in the situation. And that's how you deal with them. You just ignore them because they're not really significant human beings in general, and that's why they spend all day online. Same goes for me. Serious question, my friend Scott from V. Do you think the people of Russia's armed forces will ever reach Kiev capital the timely fashion? I suppose. I mean, are they in a rush? No, they're not in a rush. The war is going Russia's way. They're able to sustain the losses they're currently taking, and they are continuing to push and reach objectives. I don't know if the Russians will ever go for Kiev. It depends on how the war plays out. It depends on if the regime collapses. The whole country could collapse and just become a complete Ukrainian state, but as a Russian puppet. Who knows? You never know. You just never know what's going to happen with these things. It can go left, right. We could have a nuclear war, and Ukraine just doesn't matter anymore at all, right? Anything could happen. We can have a full war in the Middle East, and this war just comes to an end and is silent. Who knows? Alex Mercurius just said that Putin's offer a couple months back was made due to pressure from China and BRICS. Very potentially. That's India, China, Saudi Arabia, Brazil. Those are huge economies in the world. They probably want things to go back to normal, and they probably don't want a economic war between BRICS and the United States right now. So trying to find peace. Also, Putin has talked about peace the entire time. So it's not like he's really being like pressured into it. This has kind of been his position almost the entire time. It has changed. The offer has gotten worse over time, but he's always been open for negotiations. So, what is the name of the area that Poland has some historic claim to? So it's this entire eastern region, the Lvov region, and the Lutsk region right here, which is, I think this is what referred to as Glacia, right? Right here. I'm pretty sure. Like this area. Used to be Polish. And this area used to be Romanian, and this area used to be Hungarian. Yeah, so. Let's see. Was there ever any doubt that this war will end after Sumy, Kharkov, Cherny oblasts will also be in New Russia because of the proximity on the Russian map? Well, if you listen to Putin, he said that if this kept occurring, they were going to have to make a sanitary zone across the entire border. So I would expect that. But again, I don't expect it to really be a sanitation zone. I expect it to just kind of come out to the river. So. Does your mother put ketchup on your meatloaf? Okay, first off, meatloaf is gross. Second off, don't put ketchup on meatloaf. Gross. Have you heard anything about China slowing down funds transferred to Russia? No, I haven't heard anything about that. Scott, do you think the peace after the war will satisfy no one and will just lead to a second war? No. I at this point, I think this war is going to end entirely. I don't think that there's really any option other than this war ending through military means at this point. And after that, I'm pretty sure everybody's going to be very, very exhausted of the fighting. They're going to need a lot of time to build up their stocks of ammunition and equipment and stuff like that. I don't think anybody's going to be really hungry for a war other than maybe Russia, because one thing that you guys have to realize is once you get onto a war footing and once you're on a war economy, it's hard to transition off of that without your economy self-destructing and overheating, right? So a lot of Western analysts talk about this. The Russians are just getting stronger all the time. Their military is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and they have this huge military that's going to be just poised to do something after Ukraine, right? Not that they're immediately going to jump into something, but within the year, I think we could see Russia in a separate new conflict somewhere, depending on how Ukraine goes. Within the year of Ukraine ending, they might be in another conflict. Now, if this drags out forever and Russia is just very exhausted after this, then they'll take some time. But I think that the Russian army is going to be in a position, and the Russian economy is going to be in a position where they might almost need to go into another war. If F-16 fails, will NATO send any other game changers? No, that's pretty much it from NATO. I think everybody's pretty much tapped out in terms of what they can and want to send. There's going to be some more deliveries of MRAPs and stuff like that, but we don't see any new tanks coming in. We don't see any new air defense systems comparatively to what's being lost, like the Patriot batteries we've seen get hit and stuff. So, yeah, no, I don't think that there's going to be any more game changers coming in, and I don't think there's any point in the West sending anything else. Considering that before the propaganda, the only thing you heard about Ukraine was how cheap the prostitutes and how high the crime are, I wouldn't miss Ukraine. I would miss Ukraine. Ukraine's a cool place. It's got a lot of history. I think that there are obviously the negative sides of Ukraine, but yeah, it was a corrupt pit kind of before, like culturally speaking, Ukraine has a lot of, like the Ukraine has a lot of issues, a lot of corruption. So does Russia. So does the entire Eastern Europe. But Ukraine is a particular case of corruption. Scott coping as usual. At least make the colors on the map less bright. What do you mean? How am I coping? This is like my map is the exact same as Deep State. I don't know what you're talking about. I never understand this cope. You guys keep saying cope like it's just like not you or not me, but you sort of thing when you guys are actually just coping in my chat. Let's see. All right. Calibrated. Will Russia change tactics anytime soon with less Ukrainian soldiers in the east? Is it worth doing so? Very, very possibly. You could see a massive expansion of Russian offensive actions in the east as the lines begin to collapse. Right. So it is a definite possibility. The Calibrated just show up. Can you start from the beginning? No, I'm actually gonna wrap it up there, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to be doing my demonetized episode probably tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. I'm gonna get that out. And if you guys would like to follow my work elsewhere, go into the YouTube description link there, and you can find my Twitter, my Telegram, and my Patreon, where you can find that demonetized series. Go join my Patreon for free and get access to all of the free episodes on there. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you so much. Take care. Have a blessed Monday, and I will see you tomorrow if there's enough news to be on tomorrow. All right, guys. Goodbye.